Welcome to the Skip and Shannon Undisputed podcast. I'm Joy Taylor. You can catch us Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 Pacific on FS1. Here's what this podcast is all about. It's an unscripted, unfiltered, undisputed version of the day's show, and there is a lot to get into in today's podcast. Tony Romo has a big night on the hardwood in Dallas, and Skip explains that it was a fitting send-off for the former quarterback and gives Mark Cuban props for the event. Shannon issues a passionate response to Des Bryant with an open invitation to come to the desk and discuss the differences they share. Is there disdain for Steph Curry from LeBron, Russell, and CP3? Fox Sports NBA analyst Chris Broussard helps us understand the reported dislike for Steph. Colin Kaepernick still hasn't been signed. Former NFL coach Eric Mangini explains why Cleveland would be a good fit and last year wasn't a stain on his record. Finally, speaking of Cleveland, we debate what they should do with their #1 pick in the draft. Skip, heard you were doing a little texting this morning.
Speaking of Lil Wayne, we just heard him on our show open. So he was texting me this morning while I was on the treadmill. We texted for like 45 minutes, and it dawned on me, I'm getting up and trying to go to work, and he hasn't even come close to going to bed yet, right?
No.
I assume he's in Miami. He wanted to talk about Live nightclub, and he also wanted to talk about you and Des, and we're going to talk about that a little later in the show.
Okay.
He was fascinated.
What did he let you know about Live nightclub?
He said that there are older people who go to Live. I was making fun of LeBron.
Yeah.
And I said, Wayne, you're 29. He texted back. He said, I'm 34. And I said, well, you look 24. Right. So he did say, you're right.
I guess you and I got to go to Live nightclub,
so.
Skip.
Next time.
I will be there for that. Let's get it started with Tony Romo. Last week, Romo announced he was leaving football to become a broadcaster at CBS, but yesterday, he was a Dallas Maverick for the day. Romo took part in the morning shoot-around, pregame warm-ups, and sat on the bench during the game against the Nuggets. The players pushed for Romo to get into the game in the fourth quarter, but Mark Cuban pulled him back to the bench. Cuban said he went to Commissioner Adam Silver before the game to give Romo a contract which would allow him to play, but Silver nixed the idea. Let's take a listen to Romo.
We're going to make the Nuggets wait another 10 minutes. Sorry, guys. Thank you, guys. This is an honor that I could never dream of. It's a little embarrassing, but I tell you what, I'm a very lucky guy. Thank you, Dallas. I love you.
It's been great.
Oh, thank you anyway.
Back to you, Sean. Just the way the Mavs have treated me and really the whole town, it's been overwhelming, honestly. That probably felt like I was playing in not a playoff game, but maybe in a regular season, 4th or 5th week. But yeah, every time I made a layup, I was like, I should just keep shooting layups.
Shannon, what's your take on the Mavericks honoring Romo?
You're not smiling.
Skip, for real?
For real?
Skip, this is ridiculous. This is utterly, utterly ridiculous. I'm trying to figure out, Skip, what did he do to deserve this? If this is Troy Aikman with 3 Super Bowls, do it, Dallas. If this is Roger Staubach with 2 Super Bowls, have at it. Tony Romo, he gets this kind of reception because he's retiring and he gets this? Skip, Mark Cuban is a very proud man. He's a very proud owner. He's a very, very good owner. And he had to resort to a stunt like this for the last home game to sell it out? Is this where we are now? This had the feel of very minor league-ish. Reminds me of someone else I know playing for the Columbia Fireflies. I won't call no name, but you know what I'm talking about.
Wait,
Skip.
the Slugger?
Skip!
The Slugger.
I did not call his name. Skip. I'm just trying to figure out. You can't say Tony Romo underachieved in his career because he was an undrafted free agent. Okay, that aside, the big meaningful ball games, playoffs, was he ever that guy, Skip?
No.
If Tony Romo had the career he had at any other place than Dallas, Skip, he's a guy. He's a guy with those numbers. Yeah, he has some good numbers, but you judge, especially at that position, at the quarterback position, you judge by 2 things, Skip, playoff wins and Super Bowls. He had very little of one, 2 playoff wins, and absolutely none of the other, Super Bowl appearances. Skip, this was ridiculous. And I'm like, so I'm saying to myself, well, hell, when Tom Brady retires, in Boston, the day he retires will be a holiday moving forward. So I'm thinking right now, they should let him back clean up for the Red Sox.
They should.
He should be skating on the ice for the Bruins.
Yep.
And I'm like, Tony, Skip, this got to be, I'm dreaming. I'm dreaming. I know I'm dreaming, but I want to apologize to all the fans out there that I've missed Tony Romo's career and all those Super Bowls that he's won because he had to have done something to deserve this. I don't know what it is. Maybe I was asleep. Maybe it happened in a vacuum and I didn't follow that close attention to the Dallas Cowboys, and Tony Romo pulled off a couple of miracles. But, Skip, this is ridiculous. You know it's ridiculous, and you know what I know, Skip? I know you're going to be upset about this because you love winners. You love winners. And Tony Romo is not a winner, and he got a ticker tape parade for what? Because he was a quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys? His underachieving, they're underachieving butts. Absolutely, this disgusts me.
I cannot refute one thing you just said. However, I can enlighten you about the city of Dallas, Texas, in which I lived and worked for, I don't know what it was, 16 or 17 years. And I'm going to be the first to admit to you up front, as a lifelong Cowboy fan, last night felt weird to me. It felt odd to me. It felt a little off to me. And in the end, it just felt wrong to me.
Yes.
So I'm with you. I get that. But now let's put it in this context. Dallas, Texas is a star town. It's a box office town. It's an event town. And last night, for all the wrong reasons, became quite an event in Dallas, Texas. They said the media was just an overwhelming outpouring of media people camped in the tunnel watching all this. And Tony Romo, whether you like it or not, has star appeal to him, even though you can argue it's largely unearned star appeal. But he's just box office. He always was, because he's so high risk and so high reward. And it started out Tony Romo and Jessica Simpson. That was box office now. That was star appeal. Again, off the field star appeal, not playoff star appeal, to your point. But remember, Tony Romo, going back to 2007, had the second most touchdown passes in the National Football League to Tom Brady, who set the record that year with 50. Tony had 36, but it was a big deal that he had 36 touchdowns. A couple of years later, he led the league in interceptions. You know my favorite game, the Peyton Manning Romo game, in which Tony throws 5 touchdowns.
506 yards.
Yeah, 506 yards. And finally, the fateful late interception that sealed the deal for Peyton Manning, 51-48. It's just vintage classic Romo. But remember, for 11 years, he was the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. And he won a whole lot of regular season games, because you look at this record now, 78 wins and only 49 losses. You would say that's pretty good. If you like winners, right?
Yes.
Again, regular season winners, because he had 3 big years along the trail. He went 13-3, he went 12-3, he went 11-5. Those are big years, right?
Yep.
Capped off by nothing, because, as you know, he was a mere 2-4 in the playoffs, which is insulting for 2 reasons, because it's so few games that he played in the playoffs, but only 2 wins and 4 losses. So you could argue that last night was actually a fitting conclusion to Tony's career in Dallas, because he winds up being honored by the pro basketball team in town in their home finale that's basically a who cares finale, because they have missed the playoffs with, what's their record? 32-49, speaking of losers. So you could honor, it was like a perfect night to honor Tony Romo, right?
Fit right in there.
Okay, but I'm not a big Mark Cuban fan, but he pulled one over on everybody last night, because even though, for real, authentically, Tony is close friends with Dirk and with Rick Carlisle, the coach, and by association with Mark Cuban, has become friends with Mark. Mark Cuban, as we all know, is a Hall of Fame huckster and hypester. And he signed, remember, this is, I think, his first year of ownership, he signed Dennis Rodman for a month, just to distract people from maybe the mess on the floor. And then there was the time he went and worked in the ice cream parlor, serving ice cream. He's like that. He's going to pull off stunts. And this was a great stunt to pull off, because he turned what would have been a woeful home finale with maybe half the building, half the seats filled, to a sellout in which they sold out all of the Romo Maverick garb that they had to sell downstairs. Wow, that's pretty impressive, right? Yes. So way to go, Mark. You pulled one off and pulled one over on everybody, because I watched it from start to finish, and I was on the edge of my seat, because I didn't know what was going to happen. But it felt so odd to me, because there was one man not in attendance, and he owns the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry's wife went, Jerry's daughter went, because it was all awkward. I think they had to keep up appearances. Jason Garrett went, and we have by widespread reports.
A lot of reports.
Yeah, a lot of reports say that that bridge got burned. When Tony came back in early November and got cleared to play, he went to Jason Garrett and said, put me back in, it's my job, and you shouldn't lose it because of injury. And I loved it that either Jason Garrett or somebody in the organization stood up and said, no, this kid just keeps winning games. And he went right out and won the game. We were in New York that week, but he went right to your hometown and pulled it off in the last seconds. Remember that game? And that was that's the one where Tony sat back in the locker room and said, man, that's real. You know, that's too good.
And that was following the Sunday night come from behind the Eagles.
Thank you. So for whatever reason, it sounds like the bridge got burned between Jason Garrett and Tony Romo, but Jason had to attend last night. He's in the second row, clapping as he always does during the football games, and with Scott Linehan, the coordinator, next to him. He used to go with Romo, so now he's with Linehan, and they're clapping for Tony Romo because you got to keep appearances up.
Correct.
But there's also a chance that Jerry would never attend a Mark Cuban production. He just wouldn't. He wouldn't be part of it. There's some rivalry there, I'm sure.
Of course.
But in the end, maybe Jerry thinks there's still a chance Romo will come back and play for the Cowboys. So maybe he doesn't want to throw the big retirement party with the accompanying media bash yet for Tony Romo. Maybe he thinks there's still a chance that door is cracked open. Maybe he thinks there's a chance if Dak struggles, or I'm knocking on wood, God forbid, gets hurt, that Romo would leap right out of the broadcast booth and throw on his Superman outfit and save the day.
Let me ask you a question. How should other NBA players feel about this?
You know, it's interesting because the guy I used to cover in college named Scott Hastings is the color commentator for the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, I know Scott.
Network.
Scott very well.
Do you really?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
We used to do a little
Oh, because in
show.
Denver.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. He can really talk.
Yes.
He can almost talk as well as you can talk.
More than I do.
More, I don't
Scott,
know.
my bad, but Skip said it first.
Yeah. So Scott voiced on the air, because I was watching the Denver telecast, that he was initially very offended by this because it was a spectacle upstaging a game that the Nuggets, even though they have missed the playoffs, they have a lot of talent on that team, and a lot of young talent, and they were taking it seriously like
Jokic is the real deal.
Hey, he's the real deal, and that Malik Beasley, who was a high pick of theirs, had a big game last night coming up from the D-League. So they're into the game. They want to give Gary Harris and these kids a chance to really rise and shine.
Right.
And I'm with you, but Tony himself kept saying before and then during the game, I'm embarrassed by this. So I got to give him some credit for that, because you just saw what we played. When he took the mic from Dirk before the game, he turned to the Nuggets and basically apologized, saying, now I'm going to make you wait another 10 minutes for tip-off. Well, thank you,
He
Tony.
wasn't sorry. He could have easily said, Mark, thank you, but no thanks. This is not my place. I want this, I commend you for thinking that what I did for the city of Dallas was worthy of such an honor, but I'm going to have to respectfully decline. That's what he should have done.
He could have.
Yeah, he could have.
Okay, this is just me, because I think Tony can really play basketball. I think he really has.
Well, maybe he should have went with basketball instead of football.
I saw our guy, Karan Butler, who was on the other day. I saw him on, I think, one of the ESPN Sports Centers, saying, remember, he played in Wisconsin when Tony played, and he said he could really play. I think he averaged 24 in high school, and is still a pretty good just pickup game player with ex-NBA players. But the point is, I was like, well, let him in the game. Let's let him play.
No.
But Cuban said that
Adam
Silver said you have to have him under 10-day contract. And I think Cuban wanted to do that, but that would require big physical. And you might find, the doctors might have found that you can't clear him to play. He's still got a back issue or whatever. So maybe Tony thought he couldn't even pass the physical to play. I don't know.
I think the thing is that Adam Silver realized, you're not going to turn my NBA into a spectacle.
Like
we're not going to have citizens coming up. Yeah. Because we've sometimes, like with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, they'll let a kid, he'll be a Nugget or he'll be a Maverick or he'll be for a day. But Adam Silver's like, this is not a spectacle. We don't do this. This is not a monkey riding a dog for entertainment purposes. If you're going to play in the NBA, you're going to sign a contract. You're going to go through all the protocols that a normal NBA player would do. This is not no one-day gig. Skip. And I understand it, because the quarterback position in Dallas is viewed differently than any other position, any other location.
It's hallowed. Yep.
And this is why Troy, This is why Roger Staubach are revered. There have been Danny White was a good quarterback. He went to the NFC Championship game like 3 straight years, Skip. He was not a bad quarterback. He just happened to follow Roger Staubach.
Agreed.
You never want to follow them. You never want to follow the man. You want to follow the man that follow the man, and then you'll be good.
No, Danny was pretty good.
Yes.
No.
But these mythical quarterbacks, the Aikmans and the Staubach, they were able to do something that these other guys couldn't. And they didn't get this kind of reception. Now, I'm thinking that Roger Staubach, the little bit that I know him and been around him, he would have declined this. I already know. He's the type.
I know him very well, and trust me, I played a whole lot of basketball with him, and he can really play, but there's no way he would have done that.
No.
He just would have said, oh, please. Seriously? Those are professional basketball players.
And Tony Romo out there, his underachieving as far as playoff and championships. Skip, you and I both know if he's the quarterback in any other location and he does what he did in his 11 years of starting in his 14-year NFL career, he was a good guy, had a good career, and that's it. But because he's in Dallas, people want to say, oh, well, he was great. He should go to the Hall of Fame. No, he shouldn't. And he wasn't great. He was never thought of. Let me ask you a question, Skip. Was Tony Romo ever thought of in the era with Brady, with Manning and Favre? Was he ever thought of in that ilk?
No. No.
And he's getting a hero's welcome. That should something Derek Jeter should have got from the Knicks.
No, I agree, but he's a pop culture star. You know, that's what it became. Seriously, in Dallas, he's just like the it guy. That's what happened. But you know what else offended my eye last night? Seeing Tony Romo
out
in
of
a
shape
basketball uniform. Yeah.
Out
of shape. I was like,
Skip,
oh.
You know what I said?
Hurts my eyes.
Skip,
Look
I was
at
watching.
this.
I watched a little bit of it, and I said to myself, look at that body. That's why he stays broken down. Not one muscle.
Pudgy.
Not one cut.
Yep. And his jersey's hanging out because he's got a little...
Yeah, it should hang out. You can't tuck that in. What are you going to tuck it out?
It was not a good look, Tony. I'm sorry. And I also thought there was a chance that if Mark Cuban had said, I'm going to defy Adam Silver and you're going to play tonight, it's also possible Tony thought, I can't get shown up like this. I'm not in any kind of shape to go out there and run with these guys.
Skip, look at that. I mean nothing. I mean, not one cut. Not one.
Nope. And it's why, and we've both brought it up again and again, it's why he couldn't last. It's why he walked away at age 37 with so much unfinished business, because he doesn't want to keep paying any price to get back on the football field and try to stay healthy.
And it's also why he would have regrets about retiring when he did, because he knows he did not leave every stone unturned in his preparation to get ready for an NFL season. He knows there are things that he could have done differently, he could have done better, that might have given him a better opportunity to stay healthy and last longer. That's why you have regrets. Skip, I guarantee you, the moment Brady, now you might have to snatch him out and put him in a straitjacket, but you know he did everything as far as monetarily, as far as his physics, as far as physios, as far as training, as far as his eating. He left no stone unturned. Tony can't say that because there were other things in the offseason that was more important to him. He wanted to qualify for the U.S. Open. You know, he wanted to do all these other things that if you want to be great, it has to be an obsession. And he wasn't obsessed with being great. He was good. He was okay. I'm the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. I start for the Dallas Cowboys. This is a pretty good gig. But he didn't have a burning desire. He did not have the passion that the Brady, the Mannings, the Brees, the greats.
Completely agree. So I was trying to be barely okay with this last night until the 2-minute mark of the fourth quarter, when Romo pulled a pro wrestling stunt, got up and ran down to the scores table like, I'm going in the game. And, of course, Mark Cuban ran right after him and grabbed his jersey and pulled him back.
I'm not finna get fined for you going in this game $1 million.
It's like a Gronk stunt, you know, like at WrestleMania. Gronk did it again the other day.
Skip, I mean, he could have done no push-ups. He could have done no tricep work to at least have one muscle. I mean, can he have a trap? Can he have a tricep? Can he have one muscle to show, Skip? How you 37 and look like that, Skip? You a professional athlete, so I'm supposed to, man, look at, man, I want to be built like Tony. That is off, Skip, that's garment bag. Now, you know, you get a garment bag, it's just flat. no edges, no corners.
I've known a lot of quarterbacks who didn't have the best looking body, but this is
That got to be,
this
Skip. I'm not saying you got to be abbed up and, you know, you need all the, you know, look like Hercules.
No.
But, dude, what am I supposed to do with that?
You have to imagine if the Mavericks were having a better season and this game mattered to them, that no matter how big of a star Tony
Where are the
Romo
caps
is,
on where are the
Cuban
caps?
would not have done
Skip,
this.
where are the caps on his shoulder?
You got to go train him, Shannon.
Nah.
You're right. You don't work out enough. Skip should train him.
Skip ain't got time for that.
No.
Skip,
he looked so wrong in that uniform. It looked like an older guy trying to wear a kid's uniform.
Yeah, he got that grandpa. He got that dad bod. He got a grandpa
He's got
bod.
a dad body.
No, that's grandpa, granddaddy.
No mercy. Thanks for listening, guys. Before we get to the next topic, here's Shannon with a message from ZipRecruiter.
Thanks, Joy. Hiring can be a real pain, and it can be difficult to know where to post your job and to find the best candidates. If you want to find the perfect hire, you need to post your job on all the top job sites, and now you can with ZipRecruiter.com. You can post your positions to over 200 job sites, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, all with a single click. It's that easy. Find candidates in any city or industry nationwide. Just post once and watch your qualified candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. No juggling emails or calls to your office. Nobody has time for that. Quickly screen candidates, rate them, and hire them fast and in person. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by the most powerful companies and thousands of small and medium-sized businesses. Right now, listeners of our podcast can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/undisputed. That's ZipRecruiter.com/undisputed.
Thanks. One more time, our listeners can try it for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/undisputed. Now back to the show. No mercy. In the book, The Miraculous Rise of Steph Curry, author Marcus Thompson lists a number of players, including LeBron James, Chris Paul, and Russell Westbrook, who have a jealousy or hate towards Curry. Thompson spoke to our own Jason McIntyre about Curry's relationship with LeBron. Let's take a listen.
There's this thing there with he and LeBron that's a little weird. There was a time where LeBron and Steph were like little brother, big brother. LeBron was like a mentor. He was a big fan of Curry. He would go to Curry's games at Davidson. Even when they got to the NBA, they had moments where LeBron is looking at him like, wow. And then Steph kind of like challenged LeBron's status. And I think the part that's odd for Steph is like, why does that mean there has to be some beef between us? He loves LeBron. He respects LeBron because the outside world is pitting us together. Why do you and I have to now have this disdain between us? I thought we were cool. That's the questions that is in Curry's mind and Curry's camp. Why do you not like me when all I did was basically respect everything you did and kind of follow the model you carried out? So there's an interesting dynamic there, and it's not just with LeBron. Steph wants to be accepted by all these guys. This is what he works for.
We're joined by Chris Broussard. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
How do you explain all this hate towards Steph?
Shannon, is this brothers just hating on the light-skinned cat?
That's what it is. yeah, that's what it is.
No, there's a lot of colorism in the black community, but I'm just playing. That's not it. That's not it. Although Michael Eric Dyson wrote an article last year saying that had a lot to do with it. I don't agree because Muhammad Ali was light-skinned and obviously a lot of others. But getting to some serious points, this is rooted in the competitiveness that these players have and the jealousy that comes with competitiveness. If someone outshines you. So LeBron has been the face of the league for what? At least the last 10 years? I would say ever since he went to the finals in 2007.
I don't know. I think he was the face of the league when he stepped
I think
on the
that's
floor
arguable.
in Sacramento.
Yeah, I think that's arguable.
Seriously.
He certainly was going, you knew he was going to be. So, and then before that, I mean, he's been huge. He's been the guy his entire life. And all of a sudden, last year, Steph took that from him. Now, LeBron took it back in the finals, but there is no question Steph Curry was the face of the NBA last year. And so naturally, that bothered LeBron. This is not unprecedented. Isaiah Thomas has told me several times his relationship with Magic Johnson fell apart. And they fell out when Isaiah began challenging Magic in the finals. As long as it was, oh, yeah, Isaiah's my man. Yeah. He's great. And then they going out in the second round. It was cool. This is according to Isaiah. Magic might tell it differently. But Isaiah says that when they got in the finals, he became a rival, and they're trying to beat, and they did beat the Lakers. that's when their relationship fell apart. Isaiah had disdain for Michael Jordan. When Michael Jordan started getting all the praise, I mean, we know that. It's so well documented.
When they wouldn't passing the ball in the All-Star game,
Exactly.
they froze him out.
Exactly.
And Michael never forgot it.
That's right. That's right. Now, with Russ and Chris, this is rooted in Steph getting all this praise, and you're the best point guard in the league, but you won't guard us. So it's like you can come at us, make me fall. I'm Chris Paul, you make me fall, and you do all this stuff offensively. But on the other end, you won't even guard me. You know, you won't let me go at you. So that's where, so they feel like you're supposed to be the best player in the league or the best point guard in the league, but you won't take up the challenge of guarding us. Now, it's Golden State being smart. Steph's not a good defender, so they put Klay on these guys. But that's how players look at it. And finally, I'll say this. The analytics media love Steph. Steph is the poster child for analytics basketball. Three-pointers over twos. Science and data over physicality. He's not fast, he's not quick, he's not strong, but he shoots the three like the analytics say you should, and he overwhelms all that physical stuff. So I think the analytics-driven media does fawn over him a little too much, and that players are like, come on. So I think that's where it all stems from.
This Steph Curry is an unknown phenomenon to the NBA. Because if you go back, think about the players that really, really captivated the attention of the fans. You had the power of Wilt, and then you had Dr. J flying through the air. Then you had Michael. Now you had the freight train that is LeBron James. And now you get a guy that he can't even dunk. You got a guy that all he does is shoot threes.
He can dunk, but he
look, it's not power dunk.
Yeah, I mean, so now all of a sudden he ain't got no posters with him dunking. No. All his posters are him shooting threes. Dr. J, everybody wanted to be Dr. J. You wanted to fly through there. Everybody wanted to be Mike. Now everybody want to be Steph. Everybody want to shoot threes. I don't care nothing about dunking anymore. I don't need to dunk. Steph Curry's proven that, you know what, you can just be a 6'2", 185-pound guy and still go make $40, $50 million a year shooting the basketball.
You have to say, he revolutionized the way the game was played.
Yeah.
No question. No question.
Yes.
Right?
And
he giving a lot of people
excuse me. And Chris, I agree with you. When someone starts to challenge me for my throne, that's going to make me uncomfortable. And I'm going to build up a dislike for you because I'm going to go at you every time I go. And if you notice, everybody from Kyrie to Dame Lillard to Kemba Walker, when they see Steph Curry, they go at him.
Yep.
They try, because okay, oh, you the guy. Oh, you the two-time MVP? Well, that's just for offense because you don't play any defense. Everybody go at him, Skip. I mean, if you notice, like the last two games, what did they do? They kept Steph Curry in pick and roll. Yeah. LeBron, and what did LeBron do? Back him down. If you come to help, I'm going to hit one of these wide open threes, or I'm going to go over the top of you, Steph Curry. So what you want to do?
That's their game plan. Try to get Steph switched on to LeBron and
yes.
roll.
Russ hates everybody. That's just who he is. He's going at you because, look, Russ saying, I'm averaging a triple-double. How is this guy starting an All-Star game, Chris? How is this possible? What is it that the fans love, because the players and the coaches, what is it that they love so much about him? I don't know what it is, but I'm going to go at him. Now, Chris Paul, look, I don't really know a whole lot about Chris. I mean, his demeanor seems like really even keel. He seems like he's an old school point guard.
Yep.
Not really all that flash like these other guys. These guys that are coming out now, they got tremendous handles. Steph Curry can handle the ball. Kyrie, Dame Lillard, all those guys can handle the ball. But LeBron, I'm a little surprised by LeBron, but then when you step back,
you get it, right?
You get it. Because the greater the player, the greater his ego is.
Yeah.
Skip, you coming from my throne. I'm the king. And for the last decade, I've been the guy. When they needed something marketing, when they wanted to talk about the NBA, they came to me. Now they coming to me and Steph. I want to be the dominant guy. And that's just the way it is. That's the way it is in life. It doesn't matter if you sports. You could be a doctor. Hey, if you're getting all the attention, I need to know why, and why can't I get some of it?
You know the competition with beat writers.
They be hating on my man Skip. They be all on my timeline trying to hate on you, Skip. You know what I do? You know what I do to him, Skip? I said, leave Skip out of this.
Do you say that to him? You don't need to say a word.
No, I got to, Skip. I ain't gonna let them talk about you.
Ignore them.
Me, I will talk about you, but they can't talk about you.
Well, back to my friend LeBron James. I do not believe he personally hates Steph Curry. I just don't believe it.
I agree with you.
I don't think there's any hate in his heart toward the man that is Steph Curry.
No.
I do think that LeBron has come to dislike the media's fawning over Steph Curry because he thinks it's gone completely over the top and out of bounds. And it has blindsided LeBron. And we talked about this before. I loved Steph before the draft, but I told Shannon earlier, I didn't see this coming because who could have seen this coming?
I agree.
Even in the first 4 years in the league, he had all the ankle issues, and it looked like it might derail his entire career. And I don't know how they fixed him, but they did. And now he doesn't have any ankle issues that I'm aware of. He's got knee issues, but he doesn't have ankle. And all of a sudden, from nowhere, came this force of a three-point shooter, and I think it took LeBron by surprise because – remember, LeBron once went out of his way to watch a Steph game at Davidson because he'd become such a big fan of Steph, cute little Steph shooting those threes. And he took him under his wing, my little brother, in those first 3 years. And all of a sudden, little brother, wait, he just won back-to-back MVPs, and he was the first unanimous MVP, and he's revolutionized basketball, and he's a threat to my preeminence, both commercial and on the court. Right. Wow. I told Shannon earlier, so there's a new commercial out. Chase Bank. Serena's playing ping pong against, it's Steph. See, when I first saw it, I thought, well, that should be LeBron. Again, there may be some tie to, like you said, American Express or whatever, or maybe LeBron wanted too much money to do the commercial. But it just struck me that the greatest female tennis player should be playing ping pong against the face of the, well, now it's, I don't know, it's Steph, right? Whose jersey is the most popular? It's not LeBron's.
And the thing is, I don't think, and we'll get to this later, but Steph's not the face of the league this year. LeBron took it back in the finals, but the presence of Durant there has kind of taken that away from Steph.
Well, you think Russell has become the face? I think he's a threat.
He's a threat.
Well, he's got his share of commercials.
I would say LeBron right now, but Russell's coming. Yeah. There's no question.
Okay, now you surprised me with what you said about Chris Paul because I had not heard that Chris Paul resents the fact that Steph won't come back to the other end and try to guard me.
Well, that is with all the point guards.
Okay.
Kyrie goes at Steph. Like, he could have been listed because he goes at Steph too. A lot of the point guards feel that because, look, and a lot of them aren't good. Kyrie's not a good defender. Damian Lillard's not a good defender. Most of the big-time scoring point guards, John Wall, they're not good defenders.
They don't play defense.
Now, Lowry does, but the rest, but they try. Yeah. They'll guard you, And now Chris, and again with Chris, it's not just Steph. Chris is as competitive as they come. He's as competitive as Jordan and Kobe and Isaiah Thomas and all these guys. And he hates the fact that these, not just Steph, but so many, Russ, Lillard hadn't been raised above him, but all these guys that have been lifted above him, maybe Kyrie, he doesn't like any of that.
Right.
And he knows I'm a true point guard. Right. I'm putting forth my effort on the defensive end. That's one reason he doesn't want to shoot as much as these guys. He's like, look, I'm going 100% on the other end. Right. These other guys aren't. They're resting. So with Chris, it's not just Steph. That's just his competitor.
Okay, with Chris, I saw an original bad blood rivalry between the Clippers and the Warriors. Yes. And during the height of the Sterling controversy, you remember the Clippers beat the Warriors in 7, right? And then from that moment forward, the thing flipped completely to where now the Warriors have won the last 10 meetings against the Clippers. So it's not even a rivalry anymore. And in those games, Steph has averaged 29 a game while shooting 47% in those 10 games from the three-point line. And Chris Paul shot 29% from the three-point line. So one team is shaming and humiliating the other team on a regular basis. The average margin of victory in those 10 is 13 points. So it's rout.
Hey, Chris, do you think because the media has so much love and praise and adoration for Steph, is that the players are like, okay, we can't get back at the media. We can't, okay, all the fans want to buy his jerseys. So it's like they take it out on Steph. Well, Steph is not just talking about himself.
Yeah, he's not the one publicizing himself.
But they mad at Steph because they think the media gives him a pass because he clowns, he showboats, he hot dogs.
He does.
And he gets a pass with it.
He's not.
Although I'll say this, his shimmying and all that, or shooting and running away,
Yeah.
I don't think that's much different than LeBron prancing around.
Okay,
the court.
well, that's
like,
what I
you know
said.
what I mean? Like after
I
a
said
dunk.
earlier, like big brother, like little brother.
Yeah,
I think
mean,
little brother finally said, hey, well, if he can do it, I can do it, right?
Yeah, but look, some of this is around the league too. Like, I asked one former coach who's a great analyst, and just, he's a big part of the game. I remember last year asking him, is Steph the best player in the world now? And he laughed. He was like, he's better than LeBron James. Like, no way. He's not even close to better than LeBron James. And again, it goes to the defensive end of the floor. Right. Like, how all of a sudden is he better than LeBron James? He doesn't play defense. He doesn't, So a lot of people around the league, I'm not saying he resents Steph or that they resent Steph, but they see that he really only plays the one side. Okay. And he's not even getting like a ton of assists, although he is a great passer.
I got to say, though, if he makes 10 out of 23s in a game, the impact of it is extraordinary. And especially with the home crowd, it just explodes. Yes. And it's just, they're unbeatable.
That's why last year I had him ranked during the regular season as the #1 player in my player power rankings I used to do because of the impact. Like, that's really, I think, the only way you can compare players of different positions, a center to a point guard or a swing man, is the impact. Right. And his impact last year was unprecedented.
Mm-hmm. Well, the old school guys have to love this story because they're always talking about how they're all buddies all the time, and apparently they all hate each other.
Now, Allen Iverson loves Steph. Remember what he said last year about Steph? He was like, I thought I was killing people. Like, this dude's a monster.
No mercy. Des Bryant posted his thoughts on race in America on Instagram a couple days ago. We talked about it on the show yesterday. If you missed it, here were some of Shannon's thoughts.
I don't have a problem with athletes speaking up. But I want to make sure before they speak up, they read up. Skip, I think Des' heart was in a good place, but because he hasn't read up enough on the race relationship and the history of racism in America, it came out totally wrong.
Des responded saying, I have to go on this show, Shannon Sharpe. You are absolutely wrong how you twisted my words. Des added, all I can say to your response is you have to want to make a change. I constantly remind the ones who are around me, it's not meant for everyone to understand because everyone is not going to understand. I speak from hurtful experiences. I programmed myself to try and avoid all excuses. I chose a different way to lead by example. I want to leave you with this. No one is obligated to respect anyone's wishes or demands. Shannon, I'll get your thoughts in a minute, but Skip, what's your reaction?
Shannon Sharpe, I'm going to preface my remarks with this once again to you. I cannot begin to feel what you feel about the history of slavery in this country or the current racial climate in this country. But my ears are always open, my heart's always open, and I listened very carefully to what you said yesterday sitting in that seat. And then I tried very hard to process and comprehend what Des wrote in his first post and what he wrote back to you yesterday or last night. I believe you both made strong points. It is certainly not for me to judge who is more right about those points. You said you cannot ignore or forget the history of slavery in this country or even the recent history of racist reactions on the part of white policemen and police women in this country. And you are so right about that. And Des, if I may try to interpret what he wrote, says that you can't be so trapped by history that you don't try to do your individual part to just move forward, to try to make this country a better place to live for black and white people. And that's despite, as he said, everything that's happened and continues to happen in this country. And maybe those remarks, as you pointed out, can be naive or misinformed, or maybe he's sending a dangerous message as a Dallas Cowboy star who makes $14 million a year and got a $20 million bonus to start this contract. But I just want to say publicly, I would welcome Des Bryant on this show to sit right here as long as he'd want to sit and discuss these issues with you as long as he would want to discuss them. And I think that could be extremely constructive and productive. And I hope this will happen because I would hope that I could sit and listen and learn a whole lot from both of you in that exchange.
Skip, when I discuss a topic on this show, I don't do it for shock value. I say what I truly, honestly feel. I do my homework, I do my research, and I try to speak in a way that the people at home will understand what I'm trying to convey. Des, I would love for you to have the opportunity to come sit and discuss your views, and then you hear my side, and then we can go from there. But before you do, I ask that you do me this one favor. I ask that you read the DOJ report, the Department of Justice report, what they found in the police department in Ferguson, Missouri, what they found in Chicago, and what they found in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
And then, and only then, if you think personal accountability is the way, then we can have this honest conversation.
Okay, that's a fair point.
Des, let me tell you something about being black in America. Everybody knows baseball. You know, in baseball, you get 3 strikes. If you strike out, Skip, when I come back up to the plate again, I'm starting from scratch. Being born black in America, I've already got 1 strike. That strike will never, ever go away. No matter what, no matter how high I ascend, I still have that 1 strike. Des, Skip, I know you didn't follow it like I did. Because, see, some things that Des doesn't understand is not blatant. They're subtle. If you was following the election and everybody was talking about how President Trump, his path to the White House, they kept using the term white working class. Skip, how many every time you ever heard him say black working class? They just say he's trying to get the black vote. But they also said something about college-educated white women. Oh, I guess black women aren't educated. What's that about? You see, Des, if you're not careful, see what I want you, because I get it, personal responsibility. I try to do the best that I can. I left Glenville, I got out, but I never forgot Glenville, and I tried to bring people with me. But Des, you got to be careful because when you say personal accountability, you feed and perpetuate a narrative that a lot of what's transpiring in blacks' lives is self-inflicted. So if I'm personally accountable, does that mean that the barriers that they're putting in place that's trying to make it more difficult? Because Des, in the very state, the judges again, the court system again, says these restrictive voter ID laws are racially biased. People trying to do the right thing, and they're putting barriers in place to make it more and more difficult for them to vote. If I'm personally accountable, can I get access to health care? Can I get access to employment? Can I get fair access to education? That's all I'm asking, Des. I get what you're saying. You say, hey, but if you just look at you and says, hey, I'm going to be responsible for Des, that's a narrow, that's a shallow way of thinking. And I don't think like that. Now, Des and I came up in two different generations, Skip. Born in 1968, came up through the 70s, and so I know what it's like. Des...
Your backgrounds aren't that dissimilar, but your eras are.
Yes. Being from rural South Georgia and seeing some of the things that I saw and hearing some of the things that I heard, it kind of shaped me. But it didn't taint me. Because, you know, my grandmother, she worked for white people. She would clean their homes and stuff like that. And when I needed the money to go to 4-H camp, she would go borrow it for them. So I have the utmost respect. Like I said, I judge a man by how he treats me, not the man's race and says, okay, he treated me bad, that whole race of people is bad. That's not how I do things, Skip. But it's just for me, I just think Des needs to do a little more reading, a little more research to have a fair understanding and a grasp of what race is like in America. So think about this, Des. Think about what your life was like before you had that star on your helmet and you got that $14 million a year. please, Dez, if you want to come on here, even if you just want to come on here and talk to Skip, I'll take the day off. But before you come, you read those 3 DOJ's reports.
Yep.
And if you still think it's all personal accountability.
Okay, I'm with you, and I hear you, and I hope Des is listening to you right now. But I did compliment him in one way yesterday. He has been, to me, an immature star for years for the Cowboys, and I thought this was at least an attempt to have some social conscience and to try to think about what's going on. And maybe it's his first attempt, so maybe it's a baby step for him.
Yeah, Skip, you have to commend him to where he was early in his NFL career to where he is now. You have to say, okay, you see Dez, the maturation process of Dez Bryant starting to take place. You know, Abraham Lincoln says he doesn't think much of a man that's not wiser today than he was yesterday.
That's a good point.
So clearly Dez is getting it. I just think the thing is that there's still some things that he needs to grasp, have a better understanding of what race relationships has been in America. And because what has transpired, for the longest time, we thought race, well, okay, everything's okay. They elected a black president. But that social media, Skip, is giving us a glimpse into someone's living room, into someone's life that we would have never known. And so you can see. But Dez, I don't have a problem with you. This is not no hate. This is not no, me trying to, and I'm not going to go back and forth in a war of words with you, Dez. You had what you had on your Instagram post. This was my response. Wish you all the best. But if you want to come talk to Skip and I about this, this chair is open to you anytime, any day.
We should do it. I hope Des will do it because I think it could be a very healthy exchange.
I agree. Come and join us, Des. No mercy. Colin Kaepernick has still not been signed by a team. There has been speculation that Kaepernick hasn't been signed yet because of his national anthem protest. But new 49er head coach Kyle Shanahan said Colin Kaepernick remains unsigned because it would require a team to change their offense. We're joined by Eric Mangini. Eric, do you agree with Shanahan?
I do think there's an element of that. I don't think that's the only thing. Every quarterback you have to cater the offense to, and Colin has a very unique set of skills. And what Kyle's referring back to is his experience with Cousins and RG3, and it is difficult when you've got a guy that's more of a run threat. You have those zone read plays. There's a lot of things that you build off it, and then you go to a more traditional guy. You've got a totally different package, so there's not the continuity. And you'd like to have similar guys in the 1, 2, 3 spots. I don't think that's the only reason that Colin isn't signed. I think it's the component of the distraction. It may be unrealistic salary expectations right now. The draft is around the corner. Everybody has that optimism that they're going to get somebody. I like Colin in Cleveland. I think that's a really good fit. I think he's a much better prospect than RG3 was a year ago. And I think the narrative that Colin played really poorly last year, I think that's unfair too. When you look at his numbers, he had a better completion percentage. He had a better touchdown to interception ratio last year. He was better rushing average, and he had a better quarterback rating than he did when they went to the NFC Championship game. So there were a lot of reasons San Francisco didn't win games last year. Colin had his role in that. But in terms of him not being productive, that's not true, and people are on that, but it's not accurate.
Are you suggesting as a starter in Cleveland or the backup in Cleveland?
Well, look, I think he could easily be the starter in Cleveland. I think he fits in Hugh's system. One of the things Colin did really well when we were there with Jim Harbaugh is there were multiple checks. Sometimes there were check with me's that had 3 different things. So it was a run, it was a pass, or it was a different run. So there were options based off the front and the coverage. He had to come up. He had to be able to read that. He had to get us into the right play, and he did that effectively. With Hugh, there's a lot of shifting. There's a lot of motioning. It's not exactly the same, but there's similarities between what Colin was really successful in and what Hugh does and is difficult about his offense.
Interesting.
I thought Kyle offered some of the most insightful and thoughtful analysis of what's taking Colin Kaepernick so long to get signed. And to a certain degree, you would have to cater your offense just a tad. But to say you call the same plays for the backup as you do the starter, that's being disingenuous. Because if you remember when Tom Brady was out, Jacoby Brissett came in when Garoppolo got hurt. They were playing the Tennessee Titans, the Houston Texans on a Monday night. Brissett ran a 27-yard bootleg for a touchdown. Josh McDaniels calling that play with Tom Brady? So in other words, he altered his play calling to fit what was the best need for the quarterback at the time.
But look, that's true. That is true, but you're talking about a very young quarterback who does have a different set of skills. But when you're building a team, you want to have like with like between your first, your second, and your third guy. Are you going to call exactly the same things? No, but the offense fundamentally isn't going to change. But when you have a quarterback that is a big run threat and a zone read type guy, and then you've got a pure pocket passer, those game plans are radically different than when you have
how about this here? When you got the backup in there and you get some of these backups that they signed, the one thing that you won't have to alter is wins and losses. Because the last one will add up. How about that? That's what's going to happen.
It does. No, I agree. So I hear what Kyle Shanahan is saying about Colin as a backup quarterback. I do get that.
Yes.
If you're established with your starter in a pro-style drop-back offense, I could see where they would resist as much as they would like to add Colin. They'd say, gee, it's such a drastic change to have to figure out this for the backup. But for the starting quarterback, a whole different story. And I still say Colin would be better than 5 or 6 starting quarterbacks in the league today.
Yes.
And yet Chris Carter was on last week and shocked me when he said that he has decided that Colin can't be consistently accurate enough with the football to be a consistently successful starting quarterback in this league. Remember that kind of came out of left field last week, and I was like, wow. You know, you watched him closely as a coach in San Francisco for how many, what was it, for a couple
I was 2 years on offense and 1 year on defense.
1 year on defense. So you saw him up close and personal in a lot of practices. Can he be accurate enough to be a successful starting quarterback?
Yes, I do think he can be accurate to be a successful starting quarterback. Do I think there's things mechanically that he can work on? Colin's arm strength is ridiculous. So in warm-ups, he'd warm up with the equipment guy, and you'd be close, and he's just flicking it, and you can hear the wind go by as the ball comes out of his hand. And it's not something, he wasn't trying to throw the ball hard. That's just how he's built. So there is an element of that on checkdowns, on wide routes, on those shorter touch-type plays that the ball comes out hot. So the receivers have to get used to the way, because it hits your hand hard. But that's how he's built, and the guys in San Francisco dealt with that, understood that. It was they practiced it every day.
Yeah.
Is he a finished product? No, but there's not very many quarterbacks in the league, even with his amount of years in the league, that are finished products.
So are there some teams out there who are just going to say no to Colin Kaepernick because of his stance against the... Yes. I believe, I don't know it for a fact, but I believe that his window is closed a little bit because of 2 or 3 teams that would just say no on principle. It might be the owner, it might be the owner's wife, I don't know. It could be the coach. But in several cases, I could see, like you threw out Hugh Jackson, they'd be way better with him next year. If you went to camp with him and you said, we're going to build around this, because you're right, Hugh could do this if Hugh chose to go this route.
And when you look at him bringing RG3 after what RG3 had done and making him the starter, Colin Kaepernick at this point versus RG3 at the point he went in Cleveland, it's night and day. The potential that he has in that system, I think, is really good. And look, everybody needs to solve the quarterback problem. Maybe they're not going to solve in the draft. Maybe they're going to get a candidate in the draft. But he's a good option to compete in Cleveland.
Right. Hopefully he gets an opportunity. That's all he can do is just hope he gets an opportunity and take advantage of it. Look at this mess.
What the?
This is mess. This is joy. Celery, squash.
Can I live? I'm trying to eat healthy.
Oh, you tried?
Do you want some?
No. Oh, after you've eaten chocolate
it's squash
for the
and
last
celery
9 months.
And cucumbers.
You've eaten chocolate for the last 9 months in every commercial break.
Listen,
now you
summer's
want to be
coming.
healthy.
Mind your business. What? You see him snitching on me?
But isn't that tougher in the morning to have those vegetables?
Why?
I don't know. It just seems like an afternoon healthy snack. As
Well, I've been up since 3:20 in the morning,
That's
so
it
this is
is your
the
afternoon. Okay,
afternoon
that's
to me.
fair.
No mercy.
ESPN's Adam Schefter reports the Browns have not made up their minds about who to draft with the #1 overall pick. The reports say the decision will be between defensive end Myles Garrett and quarterback Mitchell Trubisky. Garrett is viewed as the best player in the draft, but one NFL executive told Schefter, quote, "Don't be surprised if Myles Garrett isn't the #1 pick." Skip, what's your take?
Joy, Shannon, my take is if this is true, the nightmare continues in Cleveland, Ohio.
Absolutely.
I feel so sorry for the dog pound next year if this is true. Because to me, reportedly, the Browns are trying to decide between two potential first overall pick busts. Look, we talked about Myles Garrett. He had 12 sacks in 21 SEC games. And you and I have talked about how most of his big sack games came against Louisiana Monroe and Lamar and Rice and UT San Antonio. I'm sorry, I watch so many college games and he never leaped off my screen. I watched a good number of North Carolina games also. Mitch Trubisky never jumped off my screen. I've been shocked that he's risen up the board so quickly and now he's a candidate to be the #1 overall pick. So let's get this straight. He redshirted when he was a freshman at North Carolina. He failed to win the job as a sophomore and as a junior. Marquise Williams started. Yeah. Marquise, again, maybe not made for pro football, but he was on the practice squad at Green Bay and Minnesota last year briefly, and now he doesn't have a current team. So really, that's your guy. And so he started 1 year for North Carolina. He had a big year statistically, 30 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, but the team went 8-5, including the Sun Bowl loss to Stanford, in which he threw 2 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. And I watched a good bit of that game, and I just didn't see it. I'm sorry. I don't get it. And yet, remember, this is smoke screen time pre-draft in the National Football League. So I'm hoping for Browns fans' sake that this is just a smoke screen, that they're trying to entice somebody to come up and trade for the #1 overall pick to take either Myles Garrett or Mitchell Trubisky. I don't know if that's true because, look, I know Paul DePodesta, who's their sort of the brains of the operation because he's the stats guy. Right. And he's a smart guy. I don't know Sashi Brown, but everybody tells me he's a dynamo. And I do know Hugh Jackson, and I love him, and I respect him. And I'm not sure where does the buck stop here? Who has the final say? Is it a
Jimmy
third?
Haslam.
Maybe. You could. It was on Manziel, Jimmy Haslam. But in this case, I'm hoping that they have more brains than those two guys because I would take Deshaun Watson #1 overall, and I wouldn't look back. I'd be fine with that. But if you're going to take a defensive player, would I take Myles Garrett maybe 10th overall, where I could sort of reduce my risk on him a little bit? Yeah, I might. But, man, I like Malik Hooker a lot. Every time I watch Malik Hooker in Ohio State, he leaped off my screen. He plays safety. He doesn't can't rush the passer. I guess he could blitz. But, he's not that guy. Not a dominating pass rusher. But if you want the best defensive player, he's the best one available to my eye.
Skip, for me, if this were a John Elway in the draft, John Elway, no matter who the other, say Bruce Smith, John Elway, or whomever, receiver, running back, whoever it is, John Elway's going first. Because you're going to take the quarterback because he's the guy that can score the points. And if you have that guy, you can build from there. Skip, there's no quarterback in this draft like of that cloth. So now, you would have thought they've watched every single game that Myles Garrett has played in, freshman all the way to junior. They watched every game that Trubisky has played in. He goes to the combine. You watch their pro days. Skip, you should be at a consensus now. This is where we're going. But knowing Cleveland, they're going to take a punter. They're going to say, man, the wind be blowing off this lake, so we need to pin somebody down deep, so let's go ahead and take the punter with the first overall pick. They're going to mess this up, Skip. This is ridiculous. Whomever has the final say, if your gut says take Myles Garrett, take him. If your gut says take Trubisky, take him. Because if you acquiesce and you let the majority rule, you're going to have resentment if this guy doesn't pan out. And that's normally how it works, Skip. Now, I thought they said Hugh Jackson would have final say on the rock. If I'm Hugh, I believe Garrett is the guy, I'm going with Garrett. I understand. But what you do is that when you need a quarterback and you reach Achilles Smith. You reach Jake Locker. You reach Blaine Gabbert. Skip, that sets you back even further. I just don't. I don't get it. I don't get it. And like I said, and there's really no player in this draft, even any draft, that has every player has warts. There's something that he doesn't do particularly well.
This draft is deep to me, and guys who can play, but there's no John Elway.
Right. And the thing is with Garrett, like I said, he doesn't always play to the measurables. To be 6'4", 272, can run like he can run, can jump, almost 500-pound bencher. Skip, he should be ripping people's heads off. But you don't see that game in and game out. And that's the concern I have with him. But Trubisky, and I know they say, well, Cam Newton jumped off the screen. You knew Cam Newton was special. And think about it. Cam Newton won a national championship. Is there anybody on that roster, on the offensive side of football, that's in the NFL other than Cam? No. That just goes to show you how special he was. He did that in the toughest conference. He was down, what was it, 21-7, 21-0 to Alabama?
He was.
And brought him back?
He did.
So, do I think Mitchell Trubisky is going to be Cam Newton?
By the way, Cam won a national championship at Blinn Junior College, and he won one at Auburn. So,
and he validated Carolina's taking him first overall by winning an MVP and taking him to the Super Bowl. Skip, I just don't see the love. Like I said, I don't watch all the game tape like these evaluators do of Mitchell Trubisky. But just looking at him on television, Skip, I don't see what the love and the infatuation is about this young man.
So, again, I know these guys, and individually, like Paul DePodesta, you probably don't know him, but he was out of the Oakland A's. He's a baseball guy, and he's a
like Moneyball?
Yeah, he's a Moneyball guy. Came from Billy Bean's family tree, sort of. And he knows his stats. He played football at Harvard. I don't just Harvard, but he was a pretty good football player at Harvard, so he gets football. But I don't think you can apply the numbers to football that you can apply to gauge and predict success in baseball.
Correct.
Because the only number I know in football for quarterbacks is my favorite one, QBR. And last year, despite 30 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, Trubisky had the 10th best QBR in America. So that's not great. It's not saying John Elway, Dan Marino, whoever. It's not predicting greatness to me.
And you look at Deshaun Watson, though, Skip, his body of work, he was a 3-year starter. Now, the expectations of this young man coming into Clemson, he was highly touted. He was the #1 quarterback coming out. And for him to not only meet those expectations, he exceeded them. He was supposed to win the Heisman. Now, he didn't win the Heisman, but he was in New York both of his last 2 years, sophomore and junior year. He was supposed to win a national championship. He lost it as a sophomore. He came back and won it as a junior. So you look at his body of work, you look at his resume, you're like, okay, on the biggest stage, when they needed to make a throw or they needed a drive or they needed a play to be made with his legs, he did it.
Yeah, biggest stage versus the best defense, right?
Yeah.
And he did it twice. He barely lost one game, and he barely won the next game against Alabama.
If I'm wrong about Trubisky, I'll be the first to come up here and say it. But, Skip, I do not see what everybody else see in this young man.
I don't either, and I pity Cleveland if they're stuck with Mitchell Trubisky going forward. Because especially if you take him #1 overall and then you heap the pressure and expectation on him and he can't live up. Ugh.
Yeah. Then where do you go? But then where do you go, Skip? Because you're stuck with him for – if you take a quarterback in the first round, Skip, you're stuck with him for at least 2 to 3 years.
You are.
So then what? You losing. You still losing. At some point in time, the Cleveland – and I give the Cleveland Browns fans a lot of credit. They haven't been good for a very, very long time. But you know what, Skip? They show up every Sunday. They tailgate. I mean, they start tailgating at 6 a.m., and by the time kickoff at 1, they're ready to go. When more times than not, they already know the outcome of the ball game is going to be.
I agree.
You know, my Pittsburgh blood prevents me from having pity on any Cleveland team, but I do have respect for Browns fans because they've been through it. They have 10 different starters over the last 4 seasons. So they've got 2 weeks to decide what they're going to do with it and get it right. We'll see. No mercy. This is the Skip and Shannon Undisputed podcast, where we're delivering you an unscripted, unfiltered, undisputed version of the biggest topics of the day's show. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, like us on Facebook at Undisputed on FS1, follow on Twitter at Undisputed, and catch us at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, Monday through Friday on FS1. You can find us on channel 219 on DirecTV, 150 on Dish. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm your host, Joy Taylor. That's it for us today. We're back tomorrow with Greg Jennings and Jim Jackson. And for all my Heat fans out there, my fingers are crossed we make it into the 8th seed tonight. We'll see how it all turns out. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Fox Sports 1 of 1.